right. Good afternoon, Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. This is the meeting, virtual meeting after the meeting, the Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a minute or two here to get organized, get everything up and running. I'll spend the next 10 or 15 minutes with you all to answer any questions you might have, maybe discuss a few highlights from today's Commissioners meeting and the Railroad Commission meeting. The Railroad Commission meeting preceded the Commissioners meeting by 30 minutes. This was a special railroad meeting that we held in regards to a real estate transaction that took place today. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull out the agreement that was just concluded. So bear with me. All right. Had a lot of comments today. It was a long session, almost what, an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes was today's commissioners meeting. And again, this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. This is the meeting after the meeting. And for about the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to be available to Okay, we're just going ahead, getting refocused here. I'm going to have a little background noise coming in here. So again, over about the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to make myself available. You can go ahead and put any comments you have in the feed. I'm going to review some of the highlights of the Railroad Commission meeting that took place at 10 o'clock, followed by the Commissioners meeting. There was a Salary Board meeting today. But really nothing of significant, I would argue, came out of the Salary Board. Pretty standard, with the exception of in the Salary Board. We do have a gentleman in the Controller's office who will be retiring, Hal. So we have established a trainee position, and a trainee position is established to have some overlap. So you bring in the selected individual after the interview process. And again, the controller has that authority to hire, fire, and manage. That's 1620 authority. So he'll be selecting a replacement in the near future, and that individual will be brought in as a quote-unquote trainee. Will have some overlap with Hal, the outgoing accounting manager, as he moves towards retirement. We also did have some increase for change of rates of canine officers up at the kennel again, trying to create greater incentives for that location for hirings there. So again, hey, how are you? Cantante futura leyenda, como le va? It's a pleasure to have you here. Madeline, hello. Good to see you tuning in again. I'm just going to probably review the real major thing. I'll run through the agenda quick to see if there's anything that really sticks out from the regular agenda of the Commissioners meeting. And I'm going to say the only thing of really note would be the sale of what is ostensibly was the county railroad. Ran from just south of the train station all the way up into Schuylkill County. So today, and this has been going on, conversations have been going on for quite a bit of time with Reading and Northern Blue Mountain Railroad in regards to the sale. The fact is, the county could never effectively monetize the railroad. And at the end of the day, it was probably costing us money for all intent and purpose. The revenue generated was about $60,000 to $65,000 a year, and that came from easements and 2% based upon a freight that moved across that 19-plus mile railroad. But that railroad has been sold. As I made my comments earlier today, the fact is, uh, governments don't do a good job of running railroad. Look at Amtrak, right? It has not turned a profit since really its founding, right? 1971. They're getting close in 2020, but there might have been some creative bookkeeping there. So no doubt a private enterprise can more efficiently and effectively run a railroad than a government at any level, and clearly here at the county level. Hey, as I am going to talk a little bit about the railroad sale, but I did want to mention it is Corrections Officer Week. What a hard job. We got dedicated professionals, corrections officers, and their sergeants up at our Carbon County Correctional Facility up in the jail. They're going through some challenging times with the recent termination of the warden due to oversight issues in regards to the incident that occurred with two COs, corrections officers. But again, we have assistance from State Department of Corrections on interim warden who the Secretary of Department of Corrections has graciously provided to us as we work through really what is a hiring process for a new warden, but importantly, that top to bottom review of prison operations. And that just so happens to coincide with a study that we commissioned. And I understand that the two consultants that we hired from the local area who have significant, really decades and decades of expertise in running penitentiaries or prison systems at the state level and below are assisting with us to help chart a path ahead when it comes to the Carbon County Correctional Facility. So we look in the near future to the release of their study and the work of our interim warden who has been graciously provided to us by the Secretary of Department of Corrections. But it is Corrections Officer Week. What a tough job. I think everyone could understand what a difficult job that is. So I want to send my personal congratulations out and thanks and really demonstration of appreciation, recognition to our corrections officers at the Carbon County Corrections Facility up there on the Broad Mountain. Also want to mention when it came to a voting issue, there were during the week of 26 April 74 errant or incorrect absentee ballots were sent out to registered Democrats and Republicans throughout the county, right? What is basically occurred is Judge Homenko was to be on the ballots in 10 voting precincts, primarily the northern tier: Banks, Beaver, Eastside, Luzanne, Lehigh, Weatherly, East and West Packer, Kidder North and South. Unfortunately, 81 total ballots were printed. 74 of those ballots mistakenly were sent with an option to re-elect Judge Homenko, right? So we have 51 voting precincts. They should have only gone to 10. So 74 of the 81 were erroneously sent. Now, it's not a problem. Those ballots will come back. They'll be adjudicated. So basically reviewed. Once they're open, they will be reviewed. And if they're not from the 10 precincts that make up the magisterial district, which primarily is based out of Weatherly, but includes 9 other areas, and that is voting precincts. If outside of those areas, if a vote is cast for Judge Homenko, for example, if you're in Jim Thorpe and you happen to have an absentee ballot that says vote for one, Judge Homenko, Magisterial Court, 56304, that particular vote, only that one vote, will be null and void. Anything else on the ballot will, of course, be tallied. And let me emphasize, this is for absentee ballots only. There are only 81 sent out. 7 of them appropriately were marked with Judge Homenko on the ballot. The other 74 were not. but no need to request absentee ballots. Again, this is absentee ballots, not mail-ins. The affected absentee ballots that are returned will be adjudicated, right, during the canvassing process. What's adjudicated? They'll be reviewed. Too big of a word for me. Hey, they'll be reviewed during the canvassing process. The canvassing process starts 3 days after election. Normally Friday at 9 o'clock, the election board will come together and say, start the canvassing. And that is to go through the actual ballots that were either mail-in or absentees. But again, please know there is no need to request a new absentee ballot. And similarly important, this printing error did not impact or does not impact mail-in ballots, rather absentee ballots. And let's see if I can kind of show you an example of what occurred, because I did this. And I'll go ahead and post this on my Facebook page here a little bit after lunch, so you could see the error area. All right. So again, Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz, this is the virtual meeting after the commissioners' meeting. It's my opportunity to interact with the residents and voters of Carbon County, who of course have a vested interest in the ongoings of Carbon County. So I want to jump into, for the next couple minutes that we have left here, I want to talk about the transaction that occurred. I think many individuals know, who've been following me since I first started attending commissioners' meetings in August of 2016, and quite unashamedly, I will say, been attending more commissioners' meeting, at least from August of 2016 to assuming office in January of 20, attended more commissioner board meetings than any other citizen here in Carbon County. Again, as I was learning or working to understand the issues of Carbon County and what really mattered to the citizens of Carbon County. The railroad, being a conservative of values, being capitalist as an American, and understanding the free market system, and understanding that a private enterprise can do the majority of things better than government. It's been from day one my agenda to privatize the county railroad over 19 miles, which run from just south of the railroad station, Packard and Junction, up into Schuylkill County, up in that area. And I'm probably extremely excited and pleased to announce that today the sale of the railroad did take place. I was blessed in 2019. Mr. Al Lutke, a retired railroad employee of the Reading and Northern Blue Mountain Railroad, served as an intermediary for a trip up to Port Clinton in late summer, August, September of 2019, to sit down with Matt, Dan, and Wayne of the railroad to understand their vision for the railroad. And that put the exclamation point on my desire to ensure that I would advocate as much as I could for the eventual sale of the county railroad. And I did know the financials of the county railroad, so again, it wasn't just on a whim. I had looked at all the financials through right to know acts, looked at all the contract lease agreements, talked to the previous owners of the railroad prior to the county buying it, and all this came together with a lot of behind the scenes work and collaboration with the railroad to make this notable, I think, investment in our community that is going to be made by the Reading and Northern Blue Mountain Railroad. And no doubt they're already a significant part of the railroad. Dennis, I'll get to that in a second about the solar hydrogen plant on that. So again, 2018, I really started having the interest in the railroad, trying to see if it was effectively, efficiently being run. The county was taking in between $60,000 and $65,000 a year. There was a 2% fee that the leasee was providing to the county on an annual basis for freight running over the rails. Plus, there are some easements, so it kind of fluctuated between $60,000 and $65,000 a year. There was a previous offer to purchase the railroad of $1.3 million. Now, this was quite a few years back, 2016 was that offer. Then today we concluded the sale of the railroad, County Railroad, just over 19 miles. You can hear the Reading Northern Railroad running behind us right now, the excursion trains. There was an opportunity or a offer made of $1.3 million, but today we sold it for cash and in kind of $4.7 million. So you have $2 million cash up front. You have $125,000 for 8 years. 25% of all those proceeds will go to Lansford. They helped secure the grant many years ago, actually 40 years ago in September, to buy the railroad. They'll get 25% of those proceeds, so $500,000 now, and then about, I think it's $38,000 over the next 8 years, and that'll be used for economic development. So you have the $2 million up front, you have $125,000 for 8 years, which takes you to $3 million. Then you have $700,000 of safety and traffic pedestrian flow. There'll be 2 crossings, one at the current entry to the parking lot and one a little bit south at where the new D&L pedestrian bridge is. There'll be a second a crossing put in there for bicyclist pedestrians as they come off the trail, plus $1 million investment to upgrade that railroad. So very significant. And I would say, I'm going to be honest, this has been the highlight of my 16 to 17 months in office. This has been something I've been working on for literally 3.5 to 4 years now, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition. Andy Muller, got to thank him. He has a great vision for the railroad. He's going to continue to invest in it. He's committed to investing the amount I mentioned, but he's expecting to invest over $5 million in the railroad. And Carbon County will benefit by that investment. We're already looking, as Andy mentioned, at what could we do with some of that acreage down in Packard and Yard. So I suspect we'll see an offer at some time for a few acres. And then, of course, I've always pushed for utilization of solar energy park down there in that reclaimed brown area. And if not, I do believe it should become part of Mock Chunk Lake Park, and have some good ideas, and have been in contact with individuals within the economic development community here in Carbon County about how we can bring that as a satellite to Mock Chunk Lake Park if my ongoing conversations in regards to a solar park doesn't come to transition. The solar hydrogen plant. Hey, Dennis, thank you so much for joining me. A great question. My concern is with that particular location right off of the turnpike in what is ostensibly Penn Forest Township, is that I'm committed to the preservation of open space, and that's undeveloped space. That is our greatest natural or our greatest asset that we have in this area. That's what brings people to Carbon County to invest, to stay, to live and work, right? It's our natural beauty of this area. My concern is 122-acre solar park would not necessarily be appropriate for that area due to what I expect is significant deforestation that would likely have to take place to accommodate that. Now, if you told me it was going down into Packard and Yards, reclaimed, or it was going down onto the West plant, the old zinc plant, not a problem. I do have concerns with the expected location up there in Penn Forest Township along the turnpike. So we'll see how Penn Forest Township reacts to it as it goes through the potential or expected planning and zoning process. Now, as you know, I am an ardent supporter of energy independence for national security purposes, right? But in Carbon County, we do have to balance economic development, which is tied to tourism, and alternative forms of energy, right? I fought adamantly and voiced my opinion adamantly against the wind turbines in Penn Forest Township, just like I did up in Packard Township. Felt they were completely contrary to the Carbon County Comprehensive Plan. So again, a little bit concerned. We'll see how this plays out. I'll be in contact with the Board of Supervisors up in Penn Forest Township, specifically Tom Cross, Christian Bartulovich, and the folks up there to kind of keep on top of this issue. It says meeting virtuolo after the meeting. It should be meeting virtual after the meeting. I just looked at my typo there on this post. All right. Let's see. Thank you for my concerns. Yeah, Dennis, my understanding in having a informal conversation, solar is allowable. Now, was it zoned for commercial or residential? I can't recall if that's like an R1, R2 area or is a zoned commercial, but that could impact that. I would say see if Penn Forest has their E-code online. I know Jim Thorpe does, or give someone like Christian Bartulovich, Tom Cross a call and check to see about the zoning for that area. My thought though, my initial thought is it's probably fits within the current zoning restrictions there. So this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. You can always, it is residential 1, so that'll be unique to see how that plays out, Dennis. So, give Christian, give Tom a call and give them a shout to see what their initial opinions are. I suspect in the next supervisors meeting that's going to come up. I'm going to be jumping off here in a minute or two, but as everyone knows, 22 hours a day, 570-503-6780. That's my phone number, right? Also, C. Lukasiewicz at carboncounty.net. C as in Charlie, Lima Form Uniform, Kilo Alpha, Sierra Echo Victor India Charlie Hotel at carboncounty.net is my email address. Or you can call the office here and the ladies will bring it in, 570-325-3611. But you have to go through the vetting process, right? And they do a great job out there. But feel free to give me a call, any questions, any concerns. This is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Just the meeting after the meeting. I like to have these every couple weeks just to see if there's any questions out there from county residents or voters. But again, I'm available 22 hours a day, so you shouldn't hesitate if you're a voter or resident of Carbon County reaching out to me. So again, you'll hear the train in the background running on the Reading and Northern Blue Mountain Railroad lines that were just sold today for cash and in kind, $4.7 million. Look forward to seeing the development that's going to take place and how that helps Carbon County to continue to grow in an economic sense here. And I think you're going to see some spin-off investments made to include, I suspect probably within the next year or so, you'll see the improvement to the walkway that comes off of the 903 bridge right down here across from Caddy Corner really to the post office. You're going to see the enhancements to the pedestrians crossing. It's going to be much safer. So again, this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Thank you for tuning in as always to the meeting after the meeting. And here I'm going to make a gratuitous plug, not really. Carbon Matters next week, 8 p.m. Be there, be square. Special guest to Maggie and I, our special guest, Ty Raboni, Clerk of Courts. As anyone and everyone knows who's in the know, I'm endorsing Ty Raboni, investing my time, my money, my effort to ensure her re-election, a public official, elected official, who has put together a team of county employees that are second to none in their commitment to a more effective, efficient county government. So I look forward to Maggie and I having the opportunity on Carbon Matters on 13 May to have that conversation with Tyra Boney about what her and her team has accomplished and what can we expect from her after her reelection. And I encourage all Carbon County residents, there's 42 to 44,000 of you. I just got the new voters list here from the state in the next day or two, so I'll run those numbers out real quick in the next few days. Registered voters, get out there on the 18th of May, vote to reelect, right? And I would lastly mention, I want to thank all of you so much for the continued support, the continued engagement that we have on a regular basis. Again, it's all about transparency. It's not who needs to know, it's already about who doesn't know. Let's continue to ensure we're pushing that information out there. And Rocky and Wayne and I know all three of us are committed to doing that. This is just me going the extra mile as I committed to as I was campaigning, and continue to live to that mantra of it's not who needs, not about holding back information, but pushing that information like in military logistics. Okay, Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz, that's a long goodbye. Thank you so much for tuning in. 570-503-6780 or call me in the office, 570-325-3611. Have a great afternoon.